Welcome to Femme and Furious, a podcast where pop culture meets a feminine framing. I am your host, Julia Portela, and I'm coming to you live from my bedroom, in my pajamas, because it is way past my bedtime. But we are here to discuss today The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 2, titled Through the Valley, written by Craig Mazin, who is one of the showrunners, and directed by Mark Mylod. But before we dive in, you have all of this time between now and the end of this little Call Me Beat Me section to hit pause and exit the podcast if you have not watched today's episode, because we are jumping right into the femme frame today with spoilers. Before we do that, I'm going to tell you how you can follow the pod. First and foremost, you can subscribe, you can leave a comment, you can leave a review on Spotify or wherever you get your podcast. Femme and Furious is on every major podcast network. We are also on YouTube if you are looking to watch the podcast instead, available to you both on Spotify and on YouTube. You can also follow the podcast on Instagram at FemmeandFuriousPod. You can send us an email. Inbox wide open for your thoughts, your reactions, your sniffles, your love letters to this show. And that is through our email, femmeandfuriouspod@gmail.com. You can also join our community, Too Femme, Too Furious. We are bustling over there, and doing much better than Jackson is by the end of this episode. Normally $10 a month, but we are on promotion right now. If you use the code LAUNCH, LAUNCH, at checkout, it is 90% off, giving it to you for $1. That gives you Femme and Furious fully loaded bonus episodes, 15% discount on merch and live events. It includes Sunday Brunch, which is a virtual monthly hangout, the Suffragette Award, which gives you voting privileges on bonus content, episode topics, and more. Tea Time, which is our online chat, and Fast Five, which is a weekly content roundup, something that I have really been enjoying doing and putting out. It is keeping me really centered in what I am watching, reading, and participating in every week. There are 5 categories for the Fast Five. It is Ladies Who Listen, which is podcast or audiobooks that I'm engaging with that week. It is Mistress of Music, what music is catching my ears that week. Bookish Baddies, which is whatever I'm reading that week. It is Screen Queens, which is whatever I am watching that week. And then Viral Vixens, which includes whatever viral trend, moment, etc. from the week has taken my attention. So that is our Fast Five. That's all happening over at Too Femme, Too Furious. If you are like me and you were sobbing for the last 20 minutes and you had to redo your makeup so that you can then join a video podcast because you decided to do a pop culture podcast in a season of TV that you knew was going to emotionally devastate you, then you can join us over there because we're like-minded community. As I'm saying this, you might see, if you're watching the episode on Spotify or on YouTube, co-host, who is my cat Sherlock, he was here for last episode. He's up here with me. I have 3 cats. During the actual watching of this episode of TV, my co-host, Fig, sat on my lap the entire time and acted as a hanky as I wiped my tears on her fur. I didn't really do that, but that was basically what she was doing. She was my emotional support animal, and now that I have to relive it, my oldest child and first chair co-host, Sherlock, will be with us. So you might see his tail pop up every once in a while. All right, let's jump into our femme frame for today. This is another spoiler warning. Spoilers. Coming ahead, We are talking about this episode of TV, and we are going to start with the idea that Ellie and Abby are parallels. Season 1 of The Last of Us hinged on Ellie and Sarah being opposites. That was what takes Joel on his emotional arc. This season, we get something completely different. We get 2 young women, in Abby and in Ellie, who are mirrors to each other. They are reflections of each other. I normally would do a rewatch before I put the podcast out, and I normally write these episodes out but I'm on a different schedule this week. So we're just going off the cuff. And I may come back in episode 3 and say like, oh, by the way, I missed this, this, and this from episode 2. But for now, we're just going to kind of go beat by beat, because this is an episode of TV where a lot of the meat of the episode is quite literally lifted from the video game. Now, again, I'm going to give another blanket spoiler warning. If you have not seen this episode of TV and you do not want to be spoiled, you should exit now and come back with tissues, because you will be crying, okay? If you're still here, that means you've seen this episode or you do not care to be spoiled. With that being said, I think it is brilliant that this episode starts with Abby having a dream that is clearly a callback from her father's death and how she discovers her father's death. I am about 95% of the way through a cinematic walkthrough on YouTube. I don't have a PlayStation, but I'm watching somebody else play it and it's masterful and I'm really enjoying it. It is about 15 hours of gameplay, a little bit longer than that. And I've got about 2 hours left to watch. So with that being said, this is something that is lifted from the game a little bit later on, because you play in Abby's POV for about half of the game. We've got this great dream sequence where older Abby is essentially coaching younger dream Abby. And she's like, don't go in there. And the alarms are blaring. And that's how this episode starts. So I always watch with subtitles. And before you even see anything, it's literally saying alarms blaring. You can hear the alarms in the TV show before you actually see anything, before anything comes to fruition on screen, which is an amazing way to start the episode, because that's a audio cue for us, like alarm, something is going to happen this episode, and a lot of somethings happen this episode. So I love this idea that older Abby is coaching younger Abby in the dream. She's like, don't go in there. He's gone. And when younger Abby starts to push back and starts to continue towards the door, older Abby, or present Abby, goes, he's gone. His brains are on the floor. Don't go in there. And the dream sort of ends with Abby going through the door and Abby waking up. And I love this idea that Abby, in present, is lucid dreaming through this nightmare that she's clearly been having since her father passed away, this flashback nightmare. It's her waking nightmare. It is the thing that is fueling her and keeping her going. It is also, quite literally, her nighttime nightmares that she is lucid dreaming through, because she's trying to prevent, even in the dream, like, save yourself from this torment even here in your psyche. So there's something really beautiful, powerful about that. And I don't know why. I just felt like that is going to come back in a different way, because this callback with Ellie at the end, where you see Ellie's hand on the door and you don't hear the same words, but this idea of he's gone, his brains are on the floor, don't go in there. I thought that was a brilliant parallel sort of between the beginning of the episode and the end of the episode. This idea of don't go in there, your father's dead. Don't go in there, your father's dead. Whether that is Abby to her father, the doctor, or Ellie to her father, Joel. So there's this other parallel that happens, and that is when the fence caves in on Abby, which, by the way, fucking terrifying. She crawls through this space, which is a little unrealistic to me, but whatever. And she is greeted by Joel and saved by Joel in that moment, right? So she crawls to Joel, and then again, that's sort of like in the beginning of the episode, and then again at the end of the episode, we get Ellie crawling to Joel. And I just thought some of the parallels that they did to show us that these two characters are similar And there's another huge thing that connects Abby and Ellie, and it's not just that they have both lost their fathers at the hand of like the other group or the other us. It is that they are both incredibly violent young girls. This is something that they really wanted to explore in season 1, that Ellie is like activated and excited by violence. She spends the first 3 episodes asking for a gun. She wants a gun. And then she finally steals one. She's not gifted one, even though there is a whole bunch of guns on the wall in Bill's bunker. She takes Frank's gun, little handgun, out of the drawer. She steals it because she's activated by it. And the next episode, literally less than like 20 minutes of her having a gun in the episode between the end of season 1, episode 3 and season 1, episode 4, she shoots somebody with that gun. And we see throughout the whole season that it has this violent streak in her. And even David, again in season 1, episode 8, he says to her, I have a violent heart and I see that in you. That's why he tries to essentially make her his child bride. So I love this idea because this idea of Ellie being violent has always stood out to me, but has never actively made me feel grotesque. And in the moment where I would say she's the most violent, where she is like hacking at David, right? You're so afraid for her and so activated in your own fear in watching that episode of TV that by the time she gets to the point where she's hacking at David, it's grotesque, but it's almost as emotionally alleviating for you, the viewer, even in its violence, because we care about Ellie so much. And so let's kind of go back to the beginning and talk about this episode, and we'll go maybe a little bit more beat by beat, because we start with Abby's dream, and then we sort of get Abby and crew looking out at Jackson. And this is really amazing because you start to see Owen and Manny and Nora and Mel. They're not 100% on with Abby. They certainly lost fireflies and people that they care about too by the hands of Joel, but they don't care about this the same way that she does. And this might be a little bit of a spoiler for the game, though I don't think it is at this point because we already know who these people are. This group of people are medical professionals. They were part of this crew that was at Salt Lake City. So they were working at the hospital. And it's interesting because if you think about doctors, nurses, etc., they take a Hippocratic oath. They are not to do harm to other people. And then you get this like recall, which like Tess was really on my mind this episode. Because you get this recall, at least I did internally, of save who you can save. And this idea that these people who value life, who witnessed this horrible thing in the 18 people that died by Joel's hand, are now put in a position to watch Abby just sort of switch the plan. And we get like a nod to this in the beginning of the episode, that Abby is willing to diverge from the plan if it means she'll get what she wants. So she's like, Owen's going through all of the different posts. They've got Post, they've got Fortress, they've got their professionals, etc. And he goes, I have a plan. And he sends her out. And he tells the rest of the group, like, the plan is to get her out of here and go home because this isn't going to end well for any of us. And how interesting that he is, because the tagline of the season is every path has a price. And so what is the price that Abby is going to pay in this moment right here by putting Ellie through the situation and Dina through the situation? And essentially, eventually, we will see Tommy's response to this, Maria's response to this, etc. But really, it's Ellie's. You know, the consequence that Abby will pay based off of what she's done to Joel. And when we come to this idea that Abby is willing to diverge, she is like, well, why don't we just conquer one of the bases? We tie all the people up. And you see pushback from Mel, who was like, I thought we said we weren't going to hurt other people. We are just here for Joel. There's a mission. It's Joel. We get it. He killed your father. You're going to kill him. Eye for an eye. Cool, cool, cool. Nobody is really on board with this plan that other people may be involved and hurt in this revenge scheme. And then we cut to Jesse and Ellie. And this is what I was talking about last episode, literally lifted right from the game. He knocks on her door. You open it up. I heard you had a crazy night. You kissed Dina. I don't care. It's kind of fucked up. Like this back and forth. But what changes, and it's a drastic change from the video game, we understand this moment early on in this episode that clearly between what we saw from last episode is Joel pushing Seth, Ellie humiliating him. What the hell is wrong with you? I don't need your fucking help. And Joel sitting there strumming the guitar. Ellie walks past him. And that was sort of the end of that. But we get some more context here that clearly something has happened that has been reconciled between Joel and Ellie. And so I think they're putting this here to drag out some of the emotional beats to keep the connection between Joel and Ellie alive as the season unfolds. Clearly, we're going to get some flashbacks because what has happened from this moment where we see Ellie storming past Joel, strumming his guitar, all frustrated because he just had this fight with Seth, to this idea of, I want to go on patrol with Joel instead. He's less annoying to me than you are. I don't care what you guys say about our relationship. My relationship with Joel is my relationship with Joel, and we're going to go have fucking daddy-daughter day, is what she says. And I thought that line was hysterical, and I think this look on Bella Ramsey's face as Ellie portraying the complexity of the relationship that she has with Joel because she can't say to other people why it's been complicated, why it's been so tense for them. Her loyalty stretches out to him, even in her anger for him, because she doesn't want to throw him under the bus by admitting what he's done to other people, even though she's frustrated by it. So outside of this moment from Tommy where she's like, I'm bit, I'm immune, and nothing really comes of that, she's not willing to go further. I mean, she also humiliates him in front of the whole town, right? But she's not willing to actually call him out to other people and say, he lied to me and he lied to me about this huge thing and I could have saved humanity. Somewhere inside, I think she knows that he did that for her. Clearly, she knows that he lied. And again, we don't know how she's figured that out, whether that is just an inkling that has been growing or whether there is more context. So pretty solid in saying that there is going to be some flashbacks with Joel that keep this relationship alive. But there's clearly context here that something has happened between Joel and Ellie between the night before on New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, where they've had some sort of reconciliation or come to some sort of understanding. And then in this conversation with Jesse, we get this information about the infected using their own dead corpses of infected as insulation underneath the snow, and that there could be thousands of them. This is not only fucking gross to me, but absolutely terrifying. And this is setting us up for what ends up happening in Jackson. This is not just a storm on one front. This is not just the elements. It's not just Abby. It's also quite literally a horde that, again, every path has its price. Abby is so hell-bent on getting down to these two people who are on horseback to get any information that she can about Joel, that she stirs up this horde. She's the beginning of that. And they start attacking her until something is triggered in Jackson, and that brings it to Jackson. And again, this brings back this idea that we get from Tess, where she's describing, I believe it's in episode 2 of season 1, to Ellie, that the cordyceps are all connected underground, and that you could step on a patch of cordyceps here, and it could wake up a horde 10 miles away. And now her infamous quote from season 1, where she's like, now they know where you are, now they come. And basically says to Ellie, like, you may be immune from their bite, but you're not immune from being ripped apart. And now, of course, she's not there for Jackson in this actual, but she's quite literally emotionally getting ripped apart by the wolves that we see. We see the little WLF. And I just thought this was really interesting, like a horde of wolves. I don't know if we can call them a horde. I don't know what sort of number qualified something to be a horde, because the horde of infected was quite literally, to me, a death sentence, and I don't know how anyone survived. In the game, you're constantly fighting infected, and this happens in the game too, where Abby and Joel fight a horde together. Anyway, you see that they're working together, and you're playing at that point from Abby's POV. So, and this happens about an hour and a half into the game. Like, within an hour and a half, Joel is dead in the video game. And there's about 15 hours of gameplay. So you can tell that this, happening in season 2, I really commend them. I was pretty sure they were not killing off Joel. And I said that last episode in the spoiler section, and I could not have been more wrong. And as this episode opened with Abby and her crew in looking at Jackson this way, I immediately felt sick to my stomach. Anyway, again, this parallel, right? A horde of infected, a pack of wolves infected by vengeance. And the cycle goes on and on and on. Something I think that happened in season 1 that they did really well was showing that the threat of the zombie apocalypse was not zombies, that the bigger threat are people, which is like David or Kathleen or Fedra or the Fireflies. Like, it's not that it's just the infected that you have to worry about. It is that people are being pushed to a point of depravity, and what that does to somebody and what that does to you. So I think it's really interesting because that really worked for me. But also, I don't like a zombie show, typically speaking. So I don't need a ton of infected to be moved by the storyline, especially with something like The Last of Us, which is so rich in its storytelling. There was a lot of pushback about this for a lot of people, that there wasn't enough infected in season 1. And so now here we are, episode 2, tons of infected. And I don't know if it super worked for me in this capacity. I just don't. I don't know if I loved it, but I guess they need to pose a larger threat to Jackson in general, though it seemed like it was pretty much over at the end. I mean, it seems like was a one and done scenario, so now I don't know. There were so many infected that I'm like, where else could infected possibly be coming from in this weather, in this economy? First and foremost, it was giving me Jon Snow at the Wall. It was giving me Game of Thrones, being up there, it's snowing, they're like looking out and they're like, what's coming? I don't know. It really took me out of the episode, to be honest, because it was so Game of Thrones coded, in my opinion. But I will say, I literally wrote in my notes, as Tommy was fighting the bloater, I swear to fucking God, if Tommy dies right now, I'm gonna lose my fucking shit. I was typing that as I was watching. I sort of knew in the back of my head, like, they're probably not going to kill Joel and Tommy in the same episode. If Tommy even dies at all, I don't know. Watching the attack was terrifying. Watching the attack on Jackson, not quite as terrifying to me as watching them attack Abby. As the fence caved in and she had to crawl, I was like, this doesn't make any sense to me that Abby didn't get bit. It just doesn't make sense. It really genuinely doesn't. I don't understand it. And in the video game, she's got a very strong stature. She's jacked. She's tall. She is very imposing in the video game. It'd be interesting if they made this choice intentionally or unintentionally, because she's more closer to like Ellie's size. So I don't know if they're again trying to draw on a parallel versus like a discrepancy in the game. But in the game, she is literally quite very large. So hauling herself up on these ladders and stuff like that, which you see all the time, they're constantly like boosting or like hoisting themselves up in the video game. You can see in the way that she moves in the video game, like she's got some arm muscle. She's got some strength behind her. And watching her do this sort of in the show also quite didn't work for me, because it just seemed like she was using a lot of her brute force in so much of the episode, because we also see her, punching Joel at the end of this episode. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. Am I right? And I think it's because she's so tiny. It just doesn't make sense to me that she made it out of this like horde of zombies, like hundreds and hundreds of them come rushing at her. But I digress. So while we're in Jackson for a moment, I just want to talk about Maria, because she's boss. She has this moment where she facilitates the bigot sandwich, which is what it's called in the video game. And what I really love about this is it tells you so much about who Maria is. We know that she was a DA. We know that she was a lawyer. It tells you so much about who she is without saying anything, because in episode 1, last episode, even though Joel is the one that shoves Seth, Maria escorts Seth out of the building. She's like, all right, let's go. Normally, if you're in a club or something like that, it doesn't matter who started it. Either both people are getting thrown out, or the person that was initially violent is getting thrown out. So the fact that that is clearly Joel, and Maria takes him, Seth, and throws him out, lets you know that she is not down with this train of thought. And we get this sort of small moment where she tries to facilitate an apology between Seth and Ellie. Quite funny, where Ellie's like, yeah, tons of people get drunk and say things they've never thought about before. And a really nice moment where Seth goes, I shouldn't have even been thinking about it. And Ellie's not quick to accept or reject the apology. But it's important to me that we acknowledge that Maria facilitates it, because she cares about Ellie and she cares to hold people accountable for their actions towards Ellie. And so we see in another way, which we already did in season 1 too with Maria, we see that Ellie has other protectors and caretakers besides Joel. So even though Joel and Ellie are the pair, they are the pack, they are the duo, Maria is standing up for Ellie here. She was standing up for Ellie when she threw Seth out instead of throwing Joel out. And she is defending Ellie here silently, but in steadfast and mama bear nature. Seth is going to apologize to you. He's going to make you this bigot sandwich. It's just her presence through it that really holds him accountable for what he's done to her and to Dina. But then Maria makes a choice later on when Jackson's being attacked that I literally cannot get behind. And this is letting the dogs out of their cages as a line of defense, because save the dogs. The dogs are better than people. I mean, is it boss that these dogs came and they're attacking the necks of the infected? Yes. Am I traumatized from watching I Am Legend, where Will Smith had to choke his dog out? Also, yes. Animals should just survive the zombie apocalypse. We got to see some beautiful giraffes. I don't want to see animals being attacked in the zombie apocalypse, okay? It's bad enough that a horse was shot at last season and killed. I can't handle the consequences of animal violence. I can't do it. And the fact that these dogs, Maria just let these dogs out of the cage, not to be like, oh my God, run free, please don't get eaten by zombies, which would be me. She's like, sick 'em to the zombies with the dogs. It was not my choice, not my preference, okay, as an animal girly, but I understand. These dogs have been trained for this kind of attack, and this is what they're doing. I will say a lot of the CGI in this episode also took me out. So not just them in this sort of like Winds of Winter, episode, but also like the dogs were giving me Twilight vibes. Like Jacob turns into a wolf in Twilight and attacks the vampires. It was giving me the same vibe. And it was just taking me out of this part of the episode. And it's so hard to say that because there are so many emotionally rich pieces of the episode, and I was sobbing by the end of it, that it was really difficult to be like, I'm not in this fight with Jackson. The most emotionally drawn I was Tommy fighting the bloater and fighting it by himself and being like, I'm sure this bloater is going to die. However, if Tommy dies, I'm going to fucking lose my shit. That was my note. So I'm going to follow Abby back through the end of the episode, and then we'll sort of jump to Ellie, and then we'll wrap up for the day. If we're talking about every path has a price, multiple times, Joel is looking at this attack that's happening on Jackson and wants to go back. He's desperate to get back into town. He's desperate to get back to Tommy. And by the way, he doesn't know where Ellie is either. So for all he knows, even though presumably he would assume that she's on patrol because that's where they were supposed to be together, he doesn't necessarily know that. She could be in this town that's blowing up right now. He sees the fire from the distance, and we already know how moved he is by his feelings for Ellie and the people that he loves and cares about, and his role as a protector, and that there is people in this town that he cares about that he can't protect if he's here looking at it from a distance. So we already know this is playing on Joel's heartstrings. And if every path has a price, every single time that he decides to be lured in by Abby, who is luring him in, I have ammo, I have friends, I have shelter. She keeps saying things, and she keeps saying it in a way that is almost tempting to be like, you can just revamp and then go back out there. And of course, as soon as he walks in, he's like, we have 3 minutes to get what we need and get back out there and go save the people that I love and care about. And you can see the physical representation of Abby's anger, because in this harsh blizzard that's happening outside, this literal snowstorm that is happening outside, you can see all of the characters bundled up. They have just come from riding outside. They basically said, we don't have enough time in this weather to get back to Jackson because it is not safe for us to do so because of the elements. In the beginning of this episode, we see Abby put like another layer on top of Owen because that's how cold it is. She stands in front of the fire. Literally seconds after we hear Mel say, I'm going to bring your body temperature up slowly, to Dina, who was just sitting alongside Abby. They've just come through the same circumstances. She goes, we have to bring your body temperature up slowly so you don't send your body into shock, right? As she's saying that, Abby is peeling off her coat and she's standing in front of the fire. It's a visual representation of this fire that's been lit within, as she says, that's Dina and that's Joel. And you can see the look on her face when she says Joel. She completely shifts gears. Everyone sort of tries to back into this corner with her, right? And she now puts Mel in a position where she says to Dina, knock her out. And Mel is giving her pushback. She's like, wait a second, you said that we weren't going to hurt anybody else. Again, a medical professional who has presumably taken a Hippocratic oath to not harm another person. That is her responsibility. And who has this, not that Tessa said it to her directly, but has this MO that Tess has left us with from season 1, which is save who you can save. Abby says to Mel, if you don't do it, I'm going to smash her fucking head in. So right away, violent Abby, violent Ellie. We know these two girls are violent. And I just thought this was so poignant because we can see on everybody's face as she decides to devolve into this psychosis, this psychopathy, she goes into like a blackout rage. This is where you can see on the faces of Nora, of Owen, of Mel, and of Manny, you can see on their faces they're not really on board with this. They don't really want to hurt Joel. They actually really don't want to hurt Joel. And they definitely don't want to hurt Dina. But they understand that this is something that Abby has to do in order to feel complete. First and foremost, getting to call Joel handsome, which if I, as an actress or a person, got to stand in front of Pedro Pascal and say, you are handsome, I would keel over and die. That would make my life. I would never have to do anything else other than to say, that's my dream. She just lived my dream, okay? Caitlin lived my dream. Caitlin as Abby lived my dream. She sort of acts as a nurturer, even in this moment. You get so much information up top that you don't get in the game. You play as Abby for quite a while before you recognize or understand that she was a Firefly, that she lost her dad, etc. She kills Joel and you're playing from her POV, but you don't really know who she is or why she's done what she's done until much later in the game. So we already sort of have a pre-established empathy because we sort of know from last episode with the giraffes and the graveyard that these people have been impacted. We know that they're Fireflies because we see her take the Firefly tag off of her neck and put it on the grave. We didn't know who that person was, but we discovered in this episode that it was her father, the doctor who was essentially going to cut Ellie's brain open and use it to create the cure against this zombie apocalypse. And you can see in her face this shift where she's like, I'm going to give you an opportunity to be honest. And she goes through and she's like, when's the last time you saw the Fireflies? He's backed into a corner. He says Salt Lake. She goes, at least you're honest. And this is so poignant as a line. The brilliant writing from Craig Mazin. I don't know if he wrote this line directly, but he is the credited writer on this episode, right? This line, at least you're honest, when it is the lie that has been tearing his relationship with Ellie apart. Again, this other parallel, right? That honesty is the thing that sort of drives the relationship with these two women. If we're going with Gail's advice from last episode, being brave enough to say the thing out loud. And here he does. He doesn't say it directly. He doesn't say, yeah, sure, I slaughtered all those people. But he says, I saw them at Salt Lake. He's admitting to what he's done when he has not been able to admit this to Ellie, at least not that we've seen so far. And in a way that we know clearly has eroded at his relationship with Ellie for many years. It's been 5 years since this incident at Salt Lake City has happened. So I just found that line to be really interesting. And then we watch Abby absolutely devolve into crazy town. And I literally wrote in my notes, I don't think I've ever been so wrong about something in my entire life. I really didn't think that they would kill Joel for real. Well, they did. So we get this moment where you just watch her brush his brow as she's telling him the story of who she is and why she's doing it. And then we get Joel sort of pushed back in it, which is like, just fucking do it. Like, shut up and just do it. They've all got guns. They're all armed. But she goes over to the golf clubs. And again, this is lifted right out of the game. And she just beats the shit out of him. And I guess this is maybe sort of akin to Ellie with David. If we're doing like a one-to-one comparison, of like my anger, my fear, all of my emotions are sort of bubbling to the surface, and they're able to be manifested in this very violent way in this particular moment in time. Then we get Ellie coming in, and this reference that Jesse gives to Eugene being infected and Joel killing him. We get some of this from episode 1, but we're really getting it again right now. You really see Ellie's guilt being pulled at in the beginning of this episode. You know that something has changed between her and Joel. We have an understanding of that just based off of conversation context with Jesse. We also get this understanding of who Eugene is a little bit more, because now we discover that he's a Firefly, and then you're sort of thinking, okay, well, was Eugene a part of Salt Lake? What happened? Because you sort of see that he's a Firefly. But no, we just find out that he was part of the Fireflies really early on. He drops out. He didn't want to kill people anymore. He's a Vietnam veteran. So you know that he is somebody who wants to essentially do good. That's why they're putting that in there. And how Jesse then goes to say, like, so sad that Joel had to do this thing because he couldn't be saved. And you just see Ellie's eyes go blank because she knows he actually could have been saved if Joel hadn't made this other choice. So once again, every path has a price. The price that path had, that Joel chose in Salt Lake, was this very specific price of Eugene not being able to be cured, and the many people that are bit and not able to be cured. And so at the end of the episode, we see somebody that's bit and they hold their arm up and somebody else, faceless, shoots them. Like, these people are sacrificing themselves essentially because they know, I've been bit, I don't want to turn into a zombie, we need to keep Jackson predominantly safe. That's it, that's my life. So we get like sort of the weight, I think, of the impact of the choice that Joel has made again and again. But that is, to me, a lot of what this scene of the Horde has proven. And then we get the end. And I was really not doing well watching the scene with Abby as she kills him. But I was despondent as I watched Joel's finger just lift when Ellie is like, get up, get the fuck up. She's yelling at this person that she loves. This is their us. And it is so heart-wrenching. Bella Ramsey has done an amazing job. They are an amazing actor. Watching this moment as Ellie loses her shit, it cuts. There's, again, another audio cue where everything cuts out. And again, this parallel between when Abby is crawling through the fence with the Horde kind of attacking her and she gets to Joel's hand, she's in trauma mode where the sound kind of cuts out and all you hear is like muffled sound. And it even said in the audio cues, like, muffled sound, give me your hand, as Joel is trying to save her. And then we get this traumatizing experience. Ellie's forced to watch her father figure die at the hands of this other girl. She doesn't know why it's happening. She doesn't know what's going on. And the noise cuts out. And we get sort of like the opposite. So instead of like, I crawled to you and the noise cuts out, it's like the noise cuts out and then she crawls to Joel. With every crawl that she took, I was racking sobs. This idea of, don't go in there, alarm, he's dead. That's what Abby says in the beginning of the episode. And that's what we see at the end of it. And this horror, this nightmare that Abby has been living in, this waking nightmare, this dream nightmare that she has been living in for the past 5 years at the hands of Joel, and the price that she has paid for Ellie being saved by Joel, now gets returned to us because all of the pain that she has suffered, she has just inflicted for this person whose father figure has just died in front of them, and this person that she loves and cares about the most. Start to finish, the episode was great. Absolutely despondent watching the body bag being dragged back. Absolutely despondent watching Pedro Pascal as Joel die. Didn't think they would do it. Though I will say, I'm sure there's flashbacks. We're going to get flashbacks for the rest of the season in order to fill out some of the story that's been sort of front loaded to us, and like, hey, something has happened here with Joel and Ellie. I wonder what, that we're going to get on the back end as we go through the rest of the season. But man, was I sobbing. This was masterful. I was not looking forward to this. I didn't think it would actually happen. It did. I was sad. But these parallels between Abby and Ellie is really what ties the episode together from start to finish. So we will see where this now, what the price of this path is. That Abby has been so hell-bent on this vengeance, and what is the price that she will pay in order to have accomplished it. And the price that Ellie will pay in the aftermath of whatever this is, because she's already made the threat, I will kill you. So we know where Ellie's mind is at, and we know that she's activated and heightened by violence. So it'll be very interesting to see how they take the rest of the season and spread it out and what they do with it. All right. So that is our fem frame for this week. Let's crack open the burn book, where we will talk about the superlatives for this episode. Bold and Bothered Award literally can't be anybody except Abby. Abby really has that feminine rage going on. I mean, you have to really succumb to a dark part of yourself to beat an older man in his 60s who's quite hot to a pulp with a golf club. And then to take that golf club, break it off, have done so much damage that it's the club piece has broken off, and you use that like a shiv, despite the fact that you have legitimate guns and weapons that could have done this more effectively. That is the slowly that she was talking about last episode. Okay, Shiro Award. I think it's got to go to Maria, who is so powerful in facilitating not just the lead of the attack against Jackson, but also facilitating this sort of apology that Seth gives to Ellie with the bigot sandwich. The Femme Fatale Award. This goes to Ellie, where she says to Seth, sure, people get drunk and say things they've never thought. Just calling out that having the drinks isn't what made him say it, that he already thinks it and feels it, that he is already a bigot, and that alcohol just made it more viable for him to do this. Speak your truth, Trophy. I am giving this also to Ellie because I thought in the beginning of the episode where she was like, me and Joel, we are who we are, and our relationship's complicated, and so like you and the town and everybody can just stop fucking talking about us because none of it's ever going to matter, because what happens between Joel and I is what happens between Joel and I. So I'm going to go have fucking daddy-daughter day with him. I thought that whole moment and her defense of him and her defense of their relationship, despite its complexities, was really beautiful and quite lovely. And then honorary heartthrob, I'm going to give this one to Owen, because him wanting to get Abby to turn back is, I actually think, quite profound. He cares about her. We see it. We see that there's a physical intimacy that the two of them have that she doesn't have with other characters, and the way that she talks about him and cares about him, it's just a little bit different. And I think Owen being like, hey, this plan is really bad and we're going to leave and we're going to try to get her to leave and go back. To me, that is his testament to caring about her and knowing that this moment is not more important than her life and that her life is truly in jeopardy here, and wanting to prioritize her safety and everyone else's safety over this one mission and this one thing. So that is our honorary heartthrob. Also quite interesting that they would release this episode on Easter, a day where Jesus has risen but Joel has fallen and will not rise again. Quite sad. Well, I'll leave you with that tidbit. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of Femme and Furious. If you liked today's episode, please share it with your friends, share it on social media. Thank you for everyone who has been tagging me on social media. Every time I see you guys are listening to the podcast, I literally cry. You're making my dreams come true. I love you all so much. I will be back on Thursday with the bathroom bestie, talking about the magic and the mysticism of the girls' bathroom, and then back next Monday to talk about the fallout of this episode, season 2, episode 3 of The Last of Us. And until then, just shut the fuck up and get it over with.